These are actually really good times right now. Like, if you really sit and think about it for a second, there's just so much happening around SCS. And it's not even loud. It's not like they're shouting about everything. But if you follow it closely, you start noticing there's a lot being built all at once. You've got consoles on the way, which is already a massive step. Buses and coaches coming into ETS2, which is something people have been asking for years. Road trip for ATS, rigid trucks, Illinois DLC, and then update 1.59 drops with the Benelux rework, and that alone already feels like a full meal. Like, that update could have easily been the main thing for a while, but somehow it's just one piece. And that's where it gets interesting. Because normally, after a studio pushes this much content, you expect a bit of silence, maybe a slowdown, maybe smaller updates for a while. But here, it's the opposite. It feels like SCS is building momentum instead of releasing pressure. Like they've reached a point where they're confident enough to just keep going. And then this gets announced. And it kind of shifts everything. Because this isn't just another DLC. It's not just new country, new roads. This one changes the direction. For the first time in 13 years, SCS says we're going outside of Europe. And not just slightly outside, we're going into Asia, soul of Anatolia. And when I first heard that, I had to pause a bit, because it's one of those things that sounds small at first, until you actually think about what it means. Anatolia, Asia Minor, most of modern-day Turkey, that's West Asia. So technically, we're crossing continents now. And yeah, I know, that question comes up immediately. Why is Euro Truck Simulator going to Asia? And honestly, I had that same thought for a second. But then, the more you think about it, the more it starts to make sense. Because ETS2 hasn't really been just Europe for a while now. It started like that, sure, but over time, it became more about a style. The European trucking experience, the way logistics works, the road design, the vehicle types, and that style doesn't suddenly disappear at the border. You see it in Turkey, you see it in parts of Asia, even in places in Africa. So instead of this feeling like a break from the game's identity, it feels more like an expansion of it. Like they're stretching the map, but also stretching what the game represents. And that's kind of a big step. Because once you do this, you're opening doors. And that's where it gets exciting, but also a bit unpredictable. Because now you start thinking, if Anatolia is possible, what else becomes possible later? But before even going that far, just looking at what they've shown already, this DLC looks packed. You're not just driving through random roads, you're starting off with some of the most insane infrastructure in the world. The 1915 Çanakkale Bridge, longest suspension bridge in the world, and you just know SCS is going to take their time with that. The scale, the lighting, the approach roads, it's going to feel like a moment when you cross it. Then you've got the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge, Osman Gazi Bridge, and it's not just here's a bridge, drive over it, it's the feeling of entering a new region, like you're actually crossing into something different. And then, eventually, everything starts pulling toward Ankara. And Ankara feels important here, not just as a city, but as a center point, a place where routes connect, where decisions happen, where you decide where to go next. From there, the map kind of opens up. You've got Tuzgurlu, that massive salt lake, and I'm just imagining driving there during sunset or something. Everything bright, almost reflective, quiet roads, that kind of atmosphere. We don't really have that in ETS2 right now. Then, heading south, Antalya, Alanya, tourist-heavy cities, big hotels, constant movement of goods, different economy, different traffic patterns, different energy, and that's the key thing here. This DLC doesn't just add space, it adds a different feeling. And I think that's what people are really going to notice. Now, timeline-wise, let's just be honest. This is not coming soon, like, at all. We've still got Iceland lined up, Isle of Ireland expected after that. So realistically, you're probably looking at 2028, maybe even beyond. And that might sound far, but when you look at how SCS plans things, they're always thinking ahead. Always setting up the next few years. And that connects to another conversation people keep bringing up. What about Russia, Moldova, Ukraine? Because those were part of the natural expansion path. But because of the geopolitical situation, especially between Russia and Ukraine, SCS had to stop. And that's not a simple decision. That's a big gap in the original roadmap. So instead of waiting, they redirect. And Turkey becomes that next step. And honestly, it's a smart move, because it's not just geographically interesting, it connects to something else they're building. The coaches DLC. And if you know anything about Turkey, buses are huge there. Like, not just normal buses, high-end coaches, long-distance travel, premium services. It's a whole culture. So now imagine that combined with a Turkey expansion. That's not random, that's design, that's SCS thinking. How do these pieces fit together? And when players start seeing that connection, that's when it clicks. That's when it feels like more than just separate updates. It feels like a system. And overall, I won't lie, this direction, I like it. Because it tells you something important. SCS is not running out of ideas. They're not slowing down, they're evolving. They're making sure ETS2 doesn't just survive, but actually grows into something bigger over time. And yeah, there's always going to be debate. Some people will say, stay in Europe. Others will say, go even further. But right now, it feels like they've found a balance. They're respecting what the game is, while quietly expanding what it can become. And that's a difficult thing to get right. But so far, it looks like they're handling it well. And I don't know, there's just something interesting about seeing a game this old, still finding new directions, still surprising people. That doesn't happen often. But yeah, I'm really curious about this one, not just the DLC itself, but what it leads to next, because I have a feeling this isn't just a one-time move. This might be the beginning of something bigger.